Every time you open your eyes, the universe becomes real again. But what happens in the dark, before you look, before you think, before you are? For a century, physicists have wrestled with an impossible question. Does reality exist when no one observes it? Or is consciousness the thread holding the cosmos together? From the flicker of neurons to the dance of particles, the evidence whispers a terrifying, beautiful possibility that the act of observing may not just reveal reality, it may create it. Tonight we'll trace that mystery from the smallest particle to the edges of the universe and ask, could your very awareness be the universe looking back at itself? Close your eyes. Feel the weight of your eyelids as they meet, the soft darkness that embraces you like an old friend. In this moment of deliberate blindness, where are you? Where is the room that surrounds you? The walls that define your space, the ceiling that shelters you, the floor that supports your weight. Do they exist in this heartbeat of unseeing? Listen. Perhaps you hear the distant hum of traffic, the whisper of wind through leaves, the subtle electrical buzz of modern life. These sounds arrive at your ears as vibrations, waves of compressed air that began their journey somewhere else, travelling through space to find you. But are these waves truly sounds before they reach you? Or are they merely disturbances in the air, meaningless until your brain transforms them into the symphony of existence? Now, slowly, open your eyes. The world floods back with the gentleness of dawn. Colours bleed into consciousness. The warm amber of lamplight, the deep blue shadows cast by evening, the infinite subtle gradations that our language struggles to name. Shapes emerge from chaos, the familiar geometry of furniture, the organic curves of a plant reaching toward light, the complex interplay of textures that make a space feel like home. You have just performed the most ordinary miracle of human existence, the transformation of electromagnetic radiation into vision, of molecular vibrations into sound, of chemical signatures into scent and taste. You are a biological instrument of impossible sophistication, constantly translating the universe's whispers into the rich tapestry of conscious experience. But here lies the mystery that has haunted philosophers for millennia. When you weren't looking, when your attention was elsewhere, when you slept, what happened to that world you perceive so vividly now? Your fingertips know the world through touch, the smooth coolness of glass, the yielding warmth of skin, the rough honesty of weathered wood. Each surface tells a story written in pressure and texture, temperature and resistance. Your nervous system reads these tales with exquisite precision, translating mechanical forces into the language of sensation. The keyboard beneath your fingers exists as much in the firing of neurons as in the arrangement of atoms. We are walking laboratories of perception, you and I. Every moment of our lives we conduct billions of tiny experiments in consciousness. Light strikes our retinas, and we experience colour. Molecules bind to receptors in our nose, and we smell rain on summer pavement. Sound waves set our eardrums dancing, and we hear music that moves us to tears. But the question remains, persistent as shadow. Does the universe we perceive through these miraculous instruments exist independently of our perceiving it? 3 centuries ago, an Irish bishop named George Berkeley posed a question that still echoes through the halls of philosophy. If a tree falls in a forest and no one is around to hear it, does it make a sound? Berkeley's answer was radical for its time and remains unsettling today. He suggested that material objects exist only when perceived, that to be is to be perceived. In Berkeley's vision, the chair you sit in, the room around you, even your own body exist as collections of sensations in the mind of God, sustained by divine perception when no earthly consciousness observes them. Berkeley's idealism felt extreme to his contemporaries, but it emerged from a simple logical observation. We never experience objects directly, only our perceptions of them. When you see a red rose, you experience the sensation of redness, the visual impression of petals, the memory of fragrance. But the rose itself, the thing independent of your perceiving it, remains forever hidden behind the veil of consciousness. A century later, Immanuel Kant refined this insight with Germanic precision. He distinguished between the phenomenal world, the reality we experience through our senses and cognition, and the noumenal world, the realm of things in themselves, forever beyond direct human knowledge. Kant argued that we can never step outside our own consciousness to compare our perceptions with reality itself. We're trapped, in the most beautiful way, within the boundaries of our own awareness. These early idealists understood something profound. Consciousness is not a window through which we see reality clearly. It is an active participant in the creation of the world we experience. Your brain doesn't passively receive data from the external world. It constructs a complex model of reality from partial information, filling in gaps, making predictions, creating the seamless experience of being present in a coherent universe. Consider the blind spot in your vision, the place where your optic nerve connects to your retina, creating a zone where no visual information can be processed. Yet you don't experience a black hole in your visual field. Your brain, with artistic creativity, fills in the missing information based on context and expectation. The image you see is not a perfect representation of what exists. It is your mind's best interpretation of available evidence. This raises a question that should keep us awake at night. If consciousness actively constructs the reality we experience, and if we can never step outside consciousness to verify this construction against an independent standard, how can we be certain that an external world exists at all? The common sense answer feels obvious, almost insultingly simple. The tree falls whether we hear it or not. The moon shines whether we gaze upon it or not. Reality surely operates according to its own laws, indifferent to our witnessing it. To suggest otherwise seems to elevate human consciousness to an almost divine status, making us the center of a universe that appears vast beyond our comprehension. And yet, as we'll discover, the universe itself may be far stranger than common sense suggests. For in the quantum realm, the fundamental layer of reality from which everything else emerges, observation appears to play a role so profound, so essential to the nature of existence itself, that the ancient philosophers' insights begin to feel less like abstract speculation and more like prophetic vision. As you sit here now, reading these words, photons stream from your screen into your eyes, triggering cascades of neural activity that somehow, mysteriously, become the experience of understanding. In this moment, you're not just observing the universe, you're participating in its most fundamental process, the transformation of possibility into actuality, of information into meaning, of quantum potential into classical reality. The question is no longer whether consciousness shapes reality. The question is how deep that shaping goes, and whether the universe itself might depend on consciousness in ways we're only beginning to understand. In the year 1801, while Napoleon was reshaping the map of Europe and Beethoven was composing his first symphony, a quiet English physicist named Thomas Young conducted an experiment that would eventually shake the foundations of reality itself. Working by candlelight in his modest laboratory, Young had no idea that his simple investigation into the nature of light would one day force humanity to confront the impossible, that the act of observation might literally create the world we inhabit. Young's setup was elegantly simple. He took a beam of sunlight and aimed it at a barrier containing two parallel slits cut with careful precision. Behind this barrier he placed a screen to catch whatever light passed through. The question he sought to answer seemed straightforward. Is light made of particles, as Newton had suggested, or is it a wave, as other scientists of his era believed? If light consisted of particles, tiny bullets of illumination, the result should be obvious. Some particles would pass through the left slit, others through the right. On the screen behind, you would expect to see two bright bands of light, one directly behind each opening, with darkness between them. This is what common sense demands. Objects travel through space along definite paths, and they cannot be in two places at once. But the universe, as Young discovered that day, pays little attention to common sense. When he allowed light to pass through both slits simultaneously, something impossible appeared on the screen. Not two bright bands, but a series of alternating light and dark stripes stretching across the surface. The pattern was unmistakable. It was an interference pattern, the signature of waves meeting and mingling in space. Picture two stones thrown simultaneously into a still pond. From each stone, circular ripples expand outward across the water's surface. Where the peak of one wave meets the peak of another, they amplify each other, creating a higher crest. Where a peak meets a trough, they cancel each other out, leaving the water momentarily calm. The result is a complex pattern of interference. regions of enhanced wave activity interspersed with zones of stillness. This was exactly what Young observed with light. The bright stripes on his screen marked places where light waves from both slits arrived in perfect synchronization, their peaks aligning to create regions of enhanced illumination. The dark stripes revealed places where waves from the two slits arrived out of phase, their peaks and troughs cancelling each other into darkness. The implications were staggering. Light behaving as a wave meant that each beam was somehow passing through both slits simultaneously, interfering with itself across space. A single ray of light was taking two paths at once, existing in a state that our everyday experience tells us is impossible. For over a century, Young's experiments seemed to settle the fundamental question about light's nature. Light was a wave, case closed. Scientists developed increasingly sophisticated theories of electromagnetic radiation, culminating in Maxwell's elegant equations that unified electricity, magnetism, and light into a single mathematical framework. The wave theory of light became one of physics' greatest triumphs. But then came the 20th century, and with it, the quantum revolution that would make Young's impossible experiment seem almost mundane by comparison. As technology advanced, scientists gained the ability to control light with unprecedented precision. They could now fire individual particles of light, photons, one at a time through the double-slit apparatus. With only a single photon travelling through the experiment, surely it would be forced to choose, left slit or right slit, but not both. The first photon to hit the screen behind the slits appeared as a single point of light, exactly what you'd expect from a particle. Then another photon was fired, creating another point, then another and another. Initially, the points seemed random, scattered across the screen with no apparent pattern. But as hundreds, then thousands of individual photons accumulated on the screen, something extraordinary emerged from the chaos. Slowly, like a photograph developing in a darkroom, the familiar interference pattern began to materialize. The same alternating bands of light and dark that Young had observed 2 centuries earlier were forming, one photon at a time. This revelation struck at the heart of physical reality. Each individual photon was creating the interference pattern characteristic of waves, but it was arriving at the screen as a discrete particle. Somehow, impossibly, each photon was interfering with itself. It was as if a single marble thrown at 2 doorways managed to pass through both simultaneously and collide with itself on the other side. The mathematical description that emerged from this mystery spoke of particles existing in superposition, occupying multiple states simultaneously until forced to choose. According to the quantum equations, each photon existed as a wave of probability, exploring every possible path through space at once. It passed through the left slit and the right slit and neither slit and both slits in a ghostly superposition of possibilities. But here's where the story takes a turn toward the genuinely eerie, the cinematic tension that makes quantum mechanics feel less like science and more like a philosophical thriller. When scientists decided to observe which slit each photon actually passed through, to catch it in the act of being in 2 places at once, they placed detectors at each opening. These devices would record with perfect accuracy whether a photon went left or right. The moment they turned on these detectors, the interference pattern vanished. Not gradually, not partially, but completely and instantaneously. The photons, now under observation, behaved like well-mannered classical particles. Each went through one slit or the other, never both. The wave-like interference disappeared, replaced by the 2 bright spots that common sense had always predicted. Turn off the detectors, and the wave behavior returned. Turn them back on, and the particles resumed their classical behavior. The mere presence of an observing device, the simple act of looking, was enough to fundamentally alter the nature of reality itself. This is the observer effect in its most stark and undeniable form. The universe appears to behave differently when we're watching, as if reality itself is shy, reluctant to reveal its true nature under the scrutinizing gaze of consciousness. Scientists scrambled to find classical explanations. Perhaps the detectors were disturbing the photons somehow, their presence creating interactions that forced the wave to collapse into particle behavior. But every attempt to explain away the observer effect only deepened the mystery. Even gentle observation, measurement techniques so subtle they should barely interact with the photons at all, still caused the wave function to collapse. The equations of quantum mechanics, mathematical descriptions that have proven more accurate than any theory in the history of science, seem to demand an impossible conclusion. that the act of observation was fundamentally different from every other physical process in the universe. While all other interactions were reversible and deterministic, observation introduced something entirely new, an irreversible collapse from possibility to actuality. In those dark stripes on Young's screen, in the ghostly behavior of unobserved photons, in the sudden snap of reality that occurs the moment we look, we encounter a mystery that cuts to the heart of existence itself. The universe, it seems, reserves its deepest secrets for the moments when no one is watching, and that raises a question that should haunt us. In a cosmos vast beyond imagination, filled with particles dancing their quantum dance in the dark spaces between stars, how much of reality exists in that ethereal state of possibility, waiting for consciousness to collapse it into the definite world we call home? Imagine holding a coin between your thumb and forefinger, feeling its weight, its metallic coolness, the sharp definition of its edges. Now toss it high into the air and watch it spin. In that moment of flight, as it tumbles end over end in a blur of motion, what is the coin? Is it heads? Is it tails? Your eyes see neither and both, a spinning disk that embodies pure potential, existing in that liminal space between possibilities. This is the closest our everyday experience can bring us to understanding the quantum world, a realm where particles exist not as definite things with specific properties, but as spinning coins of possibility, blurs of potential suspended between the moment of creation and the moment of observation. But even this analogy fails to capture the full strangeness of quantum reality. For when we speak of a quantum particle in superposition, we're not describing something that has definite properties we simply don't know about, like a coin that is actually heads or tails but spinning too fast for us to see. We're describing something far more profound, a particle that genuinely, objectively exists in all possible states simultaneously until the moment consciousness collapses these possibilities into a single definite reality. In the double-slit experiment, each photon exists as what physicists call a wave function, a mathematical description of all the particle's possible states and locations. This wave function isn't merely our ignorance about where the particle really is, it's a complete description of the particle's existence. Before observation, the photon isn't located at any specific point in space. Instead, it exists as a cloud of probability, a ghostly presence spread across all possible paths. When we fire that single photon toward the double slits, it doesn't choose to go through the left opening or the right opening. According to quantum mechanics, it goes through both. Not in some metaphorical sense, but literally, physically, measurably. The wave function describes a particle that explores every possible path through space, simultaneously, a quantum ghost that haunts all possible worlds at once. This isn't poetry or mysticism, it's mathematics. The Schrödinger equation, which governs the evolution of quantum systems, treats superposition as fundamental reality. In the quantum realm, a particle spinning in one direction and spinning in the opposite direction isn't contradiction, it's completion. Both states exist simultaneously in a delicate dance of possibility. Think of the particle as existing in a realm of pure information, where what we call reality is really a symphony of potentials playing out in mathematical space. The left slit path and the right slit path aren't mutually exclusive possibilities, they're different notes in the quantum composition, harmonizing and interfering to create patterns that only become visible when consciousness finally listens to the music. The interference pattern that emerges on the screen behind the slits tells the story of this quantum symphony. Each bright stripe marks a place where the wave functions from both slits arrived in harmony, their quantum melodies synchronizing to create a crescendo of probability. Each dark stripe reveals where the waves arrived in opposition, their peaks and troughs cancelling each other into silence. But here's what makes quantum superposition so profoundly different from our spinning coin analogy. The moment we try to observe which slit the photon actually passes through, we don't just discover which path it took, we force it to take only one path. Observation doesn't reveal a pre-existing reality. It creates reality from the raw material of possibility. This is the crucial shift that quantum mechanics demands of our thinking. From a universe of things to a universe of possibilities. In the classical world we inhabit, objects have definite properties whether we observe them or not. A ball is either red or blue, moving or stationary here or there. But in the quantum realm, particles exist in what physicist David Bohm called implicate order, a domain where all possibilities coexist until the moment of measurement collapses them into what he termed explicate order, the classical reality of definite properties and specific locations. Consider what this means for our understanding of existence itself. Before you observe it, that photon in the double-slit experiment isn't following an unknown path. It's following all possible paths. It's not hiding its true location from you. It genuinely doesn't have a true location. The wave function that describes its state isn't incomplete information. It's complete information about a particle that exists in a fundamentally different way than the objects of our everyday experience. Reality, it seems, is a suggestion, waiting for someone to notice. This phrase captures something essential about the quantum world. The universe appears to exist in a state of eternal potential, a cosmic rough draft continuously edited by the act of observation. Each moment of consciousness is an act of authorship, collapsing infinite possibilities into the single storyline we call reality. But who or what performs this collapse? What transforms the ethereal realm of superposition into the concrete world of classical physics? For decades, physicists have wrestled with this measurement problem, the question of what exactly constitutes an observation. Is it the photon hitting a detector, the detector registering a signal, the signal travelling to a computer, the computer displaying a result? Or is it something more mysterious, the moment a conscious mind becomes aware of the measurement, reading meaning into the patterns of data? The mathematics of quantum mechanics offers no clear answer. The Schrödinger equation describes how wave functions evolve smoothly and predictably through time, but it cannot explain the sudden, irreversible collapse that occurs during measurement. Somewhere in the process of observation, the gentle mathematics of quantum evolution gives way to something else, a discontinuous jump from the possible to the actual. Some physicists have suggested that consciousness itself might be the missing ingredient. Perhaps, they argue, the universe exists in quantum superposition until a conscious observer collapses the wave function through the act of awareness. In this view, consciousness isn't just a passive recipient of information about reality. It's an active participant in reality's creation. This interpretation faces a crucial question. What makes consciousness special? Why should awareness have the power to collapse wave functions when no other physical process seems capable of such transformation? The answer may lie in consciousness's unique ability to extract and integrate information, to create meaning from the raw data of experience. When you observe the result of a quantum measurement, you're not just passively receiving information, you're actively creating a coherent narrative from quantum possibilities. Your consciousness takes the scattered probabilities of the wave function and weaves them into the single definite story of what happened. In this act of interpretation, of meaning-making, something genuinely new enters the universe, the collapse from many possibilities to one actuality. Yet even this explanation leaves us with deeper mysteries. If consciousness collapses wave functions, then every moment of awareness is a moment of cosmic creation. Every time you open your eyes, every time you pay attention, every time you become conscious of anything at all, you're participating in the fundamental process by which the universe transforms possibility into reality. The implications stretch beyond physics into the realm of existential wonder. You're not just a passive observer of the cosmos, you're an active participant in its continuous creation. The universe dreams in quantum superposition, and consciousness, your consciousness, is how it wakes up. In the winter of 1932, as snow fell on the streets of Berlin, and the world teetered on the edge of unimaginable darkness, a brilliant mathematician named John von Neumann sat in his study, wrestling with equations that seemed to describe an impossible universe. Von Neumann possessed one of the most formidable intellects of his generation, a mind capable of performing complex calculations mentally while holding entire mathematical systems in his consciousness. Yet the quantum mechanics he was attempting to formalize left even him unsettled. The mathematics were beautiful, elegant, and experimentally confirmed beyond any reasonable doubt. But they pointed toward a conclusion that felt like stepping through a mirror into a world where logic itself had been turned inside out. Von Neumann was forced to propose something unprecedented in the history of physics, that the act of measurement was fundamentally different from every other process in the natural world. In classical physics, every interaction is reversible, at least in principle. If you could track every molecule, every force, every tiny push and pull in a system, you could run the film backward and watch events unfold in reverse. Time itself seemed symmetric at the fundamental level, but measurement, von Neumann argued, introduced something entirely new, an irreversible collapse from the ethereal realm of quantum possibilities to the concrete world of classical reality. Von Neumann's mathematical formalism divided the universe into two distinct realms. First, there was the quantum system being observed, existing in superposition, following the smooth, predictable evolution described by the Schrödinger equation. Second, there was the measuring apparatus, existing in classical reality, with definite properties and specific states. The mystery lay in the boundary between these realms. Where, exactly, did quantum behavior end and classical behavior begin? This question would haunt physics for decades. Consider a simple quantum measurement. A photon in superposition encounters a detector, which sends a signal to an amplifier, which triggers a computer, which displays a result on a screen, which is read by a scientist who understands the implications and writes them in a notebook. At what point in this chain does the ghostly quantum superposition collapse into definite classical reality? Von Neumann's answer was unsettling in its implications. He suggested that the collapse couldn't occur at any purely physical stage of the measurement process. If the detector were a quantum system, it would simply become entangled with the particle, sharing its superposition. If the amplifier were quantum, it too would join the growing web of possibilities. The computer, the screen, even the retinal cells of the observing scientist, all could, in principle, become part of an ever-expanding quantum system, all existing in superposition together. Something had to break this chain of quantum uncertainty, something that existed fundamentally outside the realm of quantum mechanics. Von Neumann proposed that this something was consciousness itself, the irreducible fact of awareness that could not be decomposed into smaller quantum parts. This proposal elevated consciousness to an almost divine status in the cosmic order. According to von Neumann's interpretation, the universe existed in a vast web of quantum superposition until consciousness collapsed it into definite reality through the act of observation. Mind wasn't just a product of matter, it was the fundamental force that transformed quantum possibility into classical actuality. Eugene Wigner, von Neumann's colleague and friend, pushed this logic to its breaking point with a thought experiment that would become known as Wigner's friend. Imagine, Wigner proposed, that a friend is isolated in a laboratory, conducting a quantum experiment while Wigner waits outside, unaware of the results. The friend measures a quantum system and observes a definite outcome, say, a particle spinning clockwise. But from Wigner's perspective, still waiting outside the laboratory, the entire system, particle, measuring apparatus and friend, remains in quantum superposition. The friend exists in a ghostly state of having observed both possible outcomes simultaneously. Only when Wigner opens the door and asks about the results does the wave function collapse, forcing reality to choose one definite history. The implication is staggering. Consciousness doesn't just collapse individual quantum measurements, it collapses entire chains of causation, entire sequences of events, entire possible histories. When Wigner opens that laboratory door, he's not just learning what happened, he's participating in the decision of what actually happened, reaching backward through time to select one possibility from the infinite menu of quantum potential. This is the ghost in the machine. Consciousness as the mysterious factor that transforms the mathematical abstractions of quantum mechanics into the lived reality of human experience. But what exactly is consciousness? How does it perform this miraculous collapse? And why does awareness possess this cosmic power when no other natural phenomenon seems capable of such transformation? These questions push us beyond the comfortable boundaries of physics into the vast uncertainty of the mind-body problem. We know that consciousness emerges from the brain. Damaged specific neural regions and specific aspects of awareness disappear. We know that consciousness can be altered by chemistry, change the brain's molecular environment, and experience transforms. Yet despite decades of neuroscientific research, we still cannot explain how the firing of neurons gives rise to the felt quality of experience, the subjective what it's like of being conscious. Perhaps consciousness is special, precisely because it integrates information in a way that no purely physical system can. When you observe a quantum measurement, You're not just detecting a signal, you're creating meaning from that signal, embedding it in a web of memories, expectations, and understanding. This act of interpretation, of placing quantum data within the larger narrative of conscious experience, might be what forces the universe to choose one story from the infinite library of possibilities. Or perhaps consciousness is the universe's way of observing itself. If quantum mechanics requires observation to collapse possibilities into actualities, then a universe without consciousness would be trapped forever in superposition, a cosmos of pure potential with no mechanism for actualizing any of its possibilities. Life, and eventually consciousness, might be the universe's solution to this existential problem, its way of creating the observers necessary for its own existence. Standing before these mysteries, we confront our own profound isolation and cosmic significance simultaneously. We are conscious beings in a universe that appears, at its deepest level, to require consciousness for its very existence. We are the observing subjects in a reality that may literally depend on the act of observation. We are the ghost in the cosmic machine, the mysterious factor that transforms mathematical possibility into lived reality. This realization should fill us with both humility and awe. Humility because we remain profoundly ignorant about the nature of consciousness itself. We are mysteries to ourselves, enigmas embodied in flesh and bone. Awe because each moment of awareness may be a moment of cosmic creation, each act of attention a participation in the fundamental process by which the universe becomes real. In quiet moments, when the noise of daily life subsides and we become acutely aware of our own awareness, we might sense the ghost stirring in the machine. Consciousness recognizing itself as both observer and observed, both subject and object, both the question and the answer in the cosmic mystery of existence. The machine hums with quantum possibilities, but it takes a ghost to make the music real. Step outside on a clear night, away from the artificial glow of cities, away from the constant hum of human activity. Find a place where darkness has permission to be itself, complete, enveloping, pregnant with possibility. Look up at the canopy of stars stretched across the infinite dark, and remember that you are seeing across time itself. The light reaching your eyes in this moment began its journey years ago, decades ago, centuries ago. That pale blue star flickering near the horizon. Its light left home when your grandparents were children. That dim red giant barely visible in the constellation of Orion. Its photons have been travelling since before the pyramids were built, crossing the vast emptiness between worlds to arrive at this exact moment, in this exact place, to meet the retina of your eye. But here's what should take your breath away. According to quantum mechanics, some of those photons you're seeing right now existed in superposition for their entire cosmic journey. They were neither here nor there, neither wave nor particle, suspended in quantum possibility for eons, until this very instant when they struck your eye and collapsed into classical reality. In some profound sense, your observation just now reached backward across space and time, selecting specific histories from the infinite menu of quantum possibilities. You didn't just see those stars, you participated in defining the very light by which you saw them. Each photon that enters your awareness carries with it a collapsed wave function, a quantum possibility that has just become classical reality because you were here to witness it. Pause for a moment with the magnitude of this idea. You're standing on a small rocky planet, orbiting an ordinary star in one spiral arm of a galaxy containing hundreds of billions of other stars, which itself is just one of hundreds of billions of galaxies scattered across a universe so vast that light from its farthest reaches has not had time to reach us since the beginning of time itself. By any reasonable measure, you are cosmically insignificant, a brief flicker of organized matter and energy in a cosmos that existed for billions of years before you arrived and will continue for billions of years after you're gone. And yet, if consciousness plays the role in reality that quantum mechanics suggests, then every moment of your awareness is an act of cosmic creation. Every time you open your eyes, every time you pay attention, every time you become conscious of anything at all, you're participating in the fundamental process by which the universe transforms possibility into actuality. The cosmos dreams in quantum superposition, and consciousness, your consciousness, is how it wakes up. This paradox, our simultaneous cosmic insignificance and fundamental importance, touches something deep in the human experience. We have always sensed our own strangeness, our odd position as conscious beings capable of contemplating our own existence. We are matter that has become aware of itself, particles arranged in such a way that they can ponder their own arrangement. We are the universe's way of asking questions about itself. Science has long portrayed consciousness as an accident, an unlikely byproduct of evolutionary processes that serves no fundamental role in the structure of reality. We emerged, according to this view, because organisms that could model their environment and predict future events had survival advantages over those that couldn't. Consciousness, in this interpretation, is merely evolution's solution to the problem of information processing, sophisticated but ultimately incidental to the cosmic order. But quantum mechanics whispers a different story. It suggests that consciousness might not be an accident at all, but rather a necessity, the universe's solution to the problem of its own existence. If quantum systems require observation to collapse from possibility to actuality, then a universe without consciousness would be trapped forever in superposition, a cosmic library of unread books, a symphony of unheard music. Perhaps this is why the universe seems so precisely tuned for the emergence of consciousness. The fundamental constants of nature, the strength of gravity, the charge of electrons, the mass of protons, appear to be calibrated with extraordinary precision to allow for the formation of stars, planets, and eventually life. Change any of these values by even tiny amounts, and the universe becomes a sterile place where consciousness could never emerge. Scientists call this the fine-tuning problem, and it has generated heated debates about whether our universe is one of countless others in a vast multiverse, or whether some deeper principle guides the cosmic parameters toward consciousness-friendly values. But viewed through the lens of quantum mechanics, fine-tuning might not be a problem at all. It might be a requirement. If consciousness is necessary for collapsing quantum possibilities into classical reality, then the universe must be structured in such a way that consciousness can emerge. A cosmos that couldn't produce observers would be a cosmos that couldn't exist in any definite sense. This returns us to the question that began our journey. What happens when no one observes? If you were to somehow remove all consciousness from the universe, every human mind, every animal awareness, every possible form of observation, would anything remain? The quantum equations suggest a strange answer. Everything and nothing would remain simultaneously. The universe would exist in a state of pure superposition, a ghostly realm where all possibilities coexist but none are actualized. Stars would orbit and not orbit their galactic centers. Planets would form and not form around their parent stars. The cosmic dance would continue in every possible configuration at once. But none of these dances would be real in the sense we understand reality. It would be a universe of infinite potential, with no mechanism for actualizing any of that potential. A cosmic rough draft that never gets edited into a final version. Only the emergence of consciousness, the universe developing the capacity to observe itself, would allow this vast superposition to collapse into the specific, definite reality we inhabit. But perhaps this vision is too stark, too dependent on our current understanding of quantum mechanics and consciousness. Perhaps there are forms of observation we haven't yet recognized, ways the universe witnesses itself that don't require human-like awareness. Perhaps every quantum interaction, every measurement performed by one particle on another, represents a primitive form of observation that gradually builds the classical world from quantum foundations. Or perhaps consciousness is more fundamental than we imagine, not something that emerges from complex arrangements of matter, but something that exists at the deepest level of reality, woven into the fabric of space-time itself. In this view, what we call consciousness might be the universe's basic capacity for self-awareness, temporarily localized in biological organisms but ultimately cosmic in scope. As you stand under those stars, feeling the cool night air against your skin, aware of your own awareness in this vast dark theatre, you're experiencing one of the most profound mysteries in existence. You are consciousness, contemplating consciousness, awareness becoming aware of itself, the universe developing the capacity to wonder about its own nature. The stars blink in the darkness above, their light carrying information across cosmic distances. But perhaps, in some deeper sense, the universe blinks too, oscillating between the quantum realm of pure possibility and the classical world of definite reality, each time consciousness collapses a wave function, each time awareness transforms potential into actual. If no one were here to see it, would the universe still exist? The question hangs in the night air like incense, sacred and unsettling. Perhaps the real mystery isn't whether the universe exists without consciousness, but whether consciousness exists without the universe. Perhaps they are not separate phenomena at all, but two aspects of a single, ineffable reality. The cosmic dance of observer and observed, dreamer and dream, the eternal conversation between mind and matter that gives birth to everything we call real. The universe blinks, and in that moment of cosmic awareness, everything begins again. The revelation came gradually, like dawn breaking over a landscape that had never known sunrise. As the 20th century progressed and technology allowed scientists to peer deeper into the quantum realm, experiment after experiment confirmed what seemed impossible. The very act of observation was fundamentally altering the nature of reality itself. It began with simple measurements, scientists attempting to track the path of an electron as it moved through space. In the classical world, this should be straightforward. Shine a light on the particle, observe where the reflected photons come from, and you know the electron's location. But in the quantum realm, even this gentle probing changed everything. Each photon used to illuminate the electron would bump it slightly, altering its path in unpredictable ways. The more precisely scientists tried to measure the electron's position, the more they disturbed its momentum. The more accurately they pinned down its momentum, the more uncertain its position became. This wasn't merely a limitation of measurement technology, it was a fundamental principle of quantum mechanics, crystallized in Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. The universe, it seemed, had built-in limits to how much we could know about a system simultaneously. But even more disturbing was the suggestion that these weren't just limits on our knowledge, they were limits on reality itself. Before measurement, the electron didn't have a definite position and momentum that we simply couldn't access. It genuinely existed in a state of quantum fuzziness, neither here nor there, neither fast nor slow, until the moment of observation collapsed this uncertainty into classical definiteness. The experiments grew more sophisticated, more elegant, more unsettling. Scientists learned to split beams of light not just spatially, but temporally, creating delayed choice experiments where the decision of how to measure a photon could be made after the photon had already passed through the apparatus. Even when the choice of measurement was made by quantum random number generators, ensuring no human consciousness could influence the outcome, the retroactive effect remained. The photon's past behavior, whether it had gone through one slit or both, seemed to depend on future observations that hadn't yet occurred. John Archibald Wheeler, the physicist who coined the term delayed choice, described the implications with characteristic poetic precision. We are participants in bringing into being not only the near and here, but the far away and long ago. The universe, Wheeler suggested, might be retroactively determining its own history based on present observations. Each measurement we make today might be reaching backward through time, selecting which version of the past actually occurred from the infinite library of quantum possibilities. But perhaps the most disturbing revelation was yet to come, the discovery of quantum decoherence. For decades, physicists had wondered why quantum superposition seemed to disappear as systems grew larger. Why could individual particles exist in multiple states simultaneously, while the everyday objects made from those same particles behaved classically? The answer lay in a process so subtle, so pervasive, that it had initially escaped notice. Quantum systems are never truly isolated. They exist in a bath of other quantum systems, photons, air molecules, electromagnetic fields, constantly interacting with their environment in ways too complex to track. Each of these tiny interactions is itself a measurement, a quantum observation that gradually collapses the system's superposition. The larger and more complex a system becomes, the more interactions it has with its environment, and the faster its quantum properties decohere into classical behavior. Imagine a symphony orchestra, where each musician is playing a different piece of music simultaneously. The resulting cacophony is so complex, so chaotic, that no coherent melody can emerge. This is what happens to quantum superposition in large systems. The delicate interference patterns that create quantum behavior are drowned out by the noise of countless environmental interactions. Decoherence explained why we don't see everyday objects in superposition, but it also revealed something profound about the nature of measurement itself. Every interaction, no matter how small, was performing a quantum measurement. The universe was constantly observing itself through an infinite network of quantum interactions, each one collapsing tiny pieces of possibility into actuality. This meant that consciousness wasn't the only thing capable of collapsing wave functions. Any sufficiently complex interaction could serve as a measurement. A photon hitting a grain of dust, an electron bumping into an atom, even the quantum vacuum itself fluctuating around a particle. All of these represented forms of observation that could transform quantum possibility into classical reality. Yet this explanation, while satisfying in some ways, only deepened the central mystery. If the universe was constantly measuring itself through quantum interactions, why did consciousness feel different? Why did human observation seem to play such a special role in quantum experiments? Perhaps the answer lay not in consciousness's ability to collapse wave functions, but in its unique capacity to choose which measurements to make, which questions to ask of reality. When you design a quantum experiment, you're not just observing the quantum world, you're deciding what aspect of that world to bring into focus. Do you measure a particle's position or its momentum? Do you observe its spin in one direction or another? Each choice eliminates vast categories of possible information, focusing reality's infinite potential onto specific answerable questions. This is the true observer effect, not just that consciousness collapses wave functions, but that consciousness chooses which wave functions to collapse. In the quantum realm, the questions we ask literally determine the answers we receive, not because we're biasing the results, but because reality itself is fundamentally indeterminate until consciousness provides the framework for determination. The implications stretch beyond physics into the realm of existential terror and wonder. If consciousness shapes reality through the questions it chooses to ask, then every moment of awareness is a moment of cosmic responsibility. The universe exists in a state of infinite potential, and consciousness, your consciousness, is constantly selecting which potentials to actualize. Consider the weight of this responsibility. Right now, as you read these words, your attention is collapsing countless quantum possibilities into the single reality you experience. The photons hitting your retina exist in superposition until the moment you observe them. The neural patterns in your brain fire in quantum uncertainty until consciousness integrates them into coherent thought. You're not just experiencing reality, you're continuously creating it through the act of experience itself. This realization should fill us with both terror and awe. Terror, because it suggests that reality is far more fragile and dependent on consciousness than we ever imagined. Awe, because it elevates every moment of awareness to cosmic significance. The observer effect isn't just a curious feature of quantum mechanics, it's the fundamental process by which the universe bootstraps itself into existence through the miracle of conscious observation. The tension builds as we realize that we can never step outside this process to observe it objectively. We are forever trapped inside the observer effect, forever unable to see reality as it exists independent of our observation. The universe we study is always, necessarily, the universe has collapsed by consciousness into a single, specific configuration of possibilities. We're not discovering reality, we're creating it, one observation at a time. In 1935, Albert Einstein found himself in an intellectual crisis that would haunt him for the rest of his life. The equations of quantum mechanics, which he had helped create, were leading to conclusions that offended his deepest intuitions about the nature of reality. In collaboration with Boris Podolsky and Nathan Rosen, Einstein crafted a thought experiment designed to expose what he believed was a fundamental flaw in quantum theory, an argument that would become known as the EPR paradox. Einstein's logic seemed ironclad. If you measured the spin of one quantum particle and found it rotating clockwise, quantum mechanics predicted that its entangled partner, no matter how far away, would instantly begin spinning counterclockwise. Not after light had time to travel between them, not through any known physical force, but instantly, faster than light, across any distance. This violated the fundamental principle of locality that Einstein held sacred. Nothing can influence something else faster than light can travel between them. God does not play dice with the universe, Einstein famously declared, and this instantaneous connection between distant particles seemed to him like the most reckless gambling of all. He preferred to believe that the particles carried hidden variables, predetermined properties that determined their behavior in advance, like cosmic DNA that dictated how each particle would respond to measurement before the measurement occurred. Einstein called this mysterious instant connection spookhaft Fernwirkung, spooky action at a distance. The phrase carried all his skepticism, his conviction that no self-respecting universe would permit such ghostly influences to operate across the vast emptiness of space. For Einstein, quantum entanglement represented not a feature of reality, but a bug in our understanding, a sign that quantum mechanics was incomplete, missing some crucial piece that would restore sensible causality to the cosmic order. But the universe, as we would discover, is far spookier than even Einstein imagined. For 30 years, entanglement remained a theoretical curiosity, a mathematical prediction without experimental confirmation. Then, in 1964, Irish physicist John Stuart Bell derived a mathematical theorem that would forever change our understanding of reality. Bell's theorem showed that any theory based on local hidden variables, any attempt to explain entanglement through predetermined properties, would produce different statistical predictions than quantum mechanics. The stage was set for one of the most important experiments in the history of science. If Einstein was right about hidden variables, certain statistical patterns would emerge. If quantum mechanics was correct about genuine non-locality, different patterns would appear. Nature itself would have to choose sides in this fundamental debate about the structure of reality. The experiments, conducted in the 1970s and refined over subsequent decades, delivered a verdict that shook the foundations of physics. Bell's inequalities were violated exactly as quantum mechanics predicted. There were no hidden variables. The spooky action was real. Two particles, once entangled, remain connected by an invisible thread that stretches across any distance, undiminished by space, unbroken by time. When you measure one particle here on Earth and find it spinning clockwise, its partner orbiting Alpha Centauri doesn't just happen to be spinning counterclockwise. It becomes counterclockwise in that very instant, 4 light-years away, responding to your measurement faster than light could travel between them. This isn't science fiction or mystical speculation, it's measurable, repeatable, technological reality. Quantum entanglement has become the foundation of emerging technologies. Quantum computers that solve certain problems exponentially faster than classical machines. Quantum cryptography systems that provide theoretically unbreakable security. Quantum sensors that can detect gravitational waves rippling through space-time itself. Yet for all its technological applications, entanglement remains profoundly mysterious at the conceptual level. How does one particle know what happened to its distant partner? What carries the information between them faster than light? The answer, according to our best understanding, is that nothing travels between entangled particles. The connection is more fundamental than communication. It's a connection at the level of existence itself. Picture 2 coins spinning in the air, one in New York, one in Tokyo. Classical physics says each coin has its own independent properties. Each will land heads or tails based on the specific forces acting upon it. But entangled particles behave more like a single coin that somehow spans continents. When the coin in New York lands heads, the Tokyo portion instantly becomes tails, not through any message passed between them, but because they were never truly separate entities to begin with. This is the revolutionary insight that entanglement forces upon us. In the quantum realm, separateness itself is an illusion. 2 particles that have interacted become part of a single, indivisible quantum system. Distance becomes irrelevant because there's no distance between different aspects of the same entity. The universe isn't made of separate objects that occasionally interact. It's made of interconnected patterns of relationship that extend across space and time. Consider what this means for your own existence. Every particle in your body was once part of distant stars, forged in the nuclear furnaces of stellar cores, scattered through space by supernovae, eventually gathering into the planet beneath your feet and the organisms that became your ancestors. Some of those particles carry quantum entanglements formed billions of years ago, invisible threads connecting you to events and places scattered across cosmic history. The calcium in your bones remembers the death of ancient stars. The iron in your blood carries quantum correlations forged in stellar explosions. The water in your cells holds memories of cosmic collisions that occurred before the Earth existed. You are not separate from the universe. You are the universe, temporarily organized in the pattern that experiences itself as your consciousness. But entanglement extends beyond individual particles to larger systems. When two people share an experience, when consciousness meets consciousness in the moment of understanding, are we witnessing a classical interaction between separate minds, or something deeper? Some physicists speculate that consciousness itself might be capable of quantum entanglement, that the felt experience of connection between minds might reflect genuine quantum correlations at the neural level. This possibility transforms our understanding of empathy, love, and human connection. When you look into another person's eyes and feel that moment of recognition, when you sense their emotions as if they were your own, when you experience the mysterious unity that sometimes emerges between conscious beings, perhaps you're experiencing entanglement at the deepest level of reality. Two particles, one heartbeat apart, whisper across eternity. But perhaps consciousness itself is the universe's way of feeling its own entanglement, experiencing its own fundamental unity through the temporary local patterns we call individual minds. The invisible thread that connects entangled particles across the cosmos might be the same thread that connects conscious beings to each other and to the vast pattern of existence from which they emerge. We are not isolated islands of awareness in an indifferent universe. We are expressions of a cosmic entanglement so fundamental that separation itself is revealed as the deepest illusion. In quantum entanglement, science discovers what mystics have always known. Everything is connected to everything else, not through chains of cause and effect, but through a unity so complete that the very idea of separateness dissolves under careful examination. The universe is not a collection of objects in space. It is a single, vast, entangled pattern of relationship, temporarily organizing itself into the countless forms we call reality. And consciousness, your consciousness, is how this unified field experiences its own infinite creativity, its own boundless connection, its own eternal dance of separation and unity. Inside your skull, at this very moment, a mystery unfolds that makes quantum mechanics seem almost mundane by comparison. 3 pounds of neural tissue, roughly the consistency of soft cheese, containing more connections than there are stars in the Milky Way, somehow gives rise to the entire universe of your conscious experience. Every colour you see, every melody you hear, every memory you cherish, every dream that visits you in sleep, all of it emerges from the electrochemical dance of cells so small that billions could fit on the head of a pin. How does this happen? How does the wet machinery of the brain create the felt quality of experience, the subjective what it's like of being conscious? For centuries, this has been philosophy's hard problem, the seemingly unbridgeable gap between objective neural activity and subjective inner experience. But in recent decades, a revolutionary possibility has emerged. What if consciousness itself operates according to quantum principles? The idea first gained scientific credibility through the work of Roger Penrose, a mathematician whose mind spans the cosmic and the quantum with equal facility. Penrose looked at the classical view of the brain, neurons firing in digital patterns, consciousness emerging from computational processes, and found it lacking. Classical computation, he argued, could never account for the mathematical insight, creative leaps, and unified field of awareness that characterize human consciousness. Instead, Penrose proposed something far more exotic, that consciousness emerges from quantum processes occurring within the brain's neural architecture. Not in the large-scale firing of neurons, which operates classically, but in the microscopic structures within each cell, the protein scaffolding called microtubules that gives neurons their shape and facilitates their function. Working with anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff, Penrose developed what they called the Orchestrated Objective Reduction Theory, OR for short. They suggested that microtubules within neurons could maintain quantum coherence at the warm, wet temperatures of the living brain, something most physicists considered impossible. In their vision, consciousness arises when quantum information processing in these microtubular networks reaches a critical threshold and spontaneously collapses into classical states, moments of objective reduction that correspond to discrete moments of conscious experience. Picture the brain not as a classical computer, but as a quantum orchestra. Each neuron contains billions of microtubules, and each microtubule can exist in quantum superposition, processing multiple possibilities simultaneously. These quantum processes, Penrose and Hameroff proposed, orchestrate themselves into coherent patterns that span the entire brain. When this quantum orchestration reaches sufficient intensity, it spontaneously collapses into a moment of conscious experience, a single, unified glimpse of awareness that integrates vast amounts of information into the seamless flow of subjective experience. This theory explains features of consciousness that have long puzzled neuroscientists. How does the brain bind together information from different sensory modalities, sight, sound, touch, smell, into a single, coherent experience? How do we integrate memories from the past with perceptions in the present to create the continuous narrative of selfhood? How does subjective experience arise from objective neural processes? In the Orcore model, consciousness emerges from quantum coherence that spans the entire brain, creating a unified field of awareness that transcends the classical boundaries between individual neurons. The binding problem, how the brain creates unified experience from distributed processing, dissolves when consciousness operates at the quantum level, where separateness itself becomes meaningless. This quantum view of consciousness also offers new perspectives on some of the brain's most mysterious functions. Memory, for instance, might not be stored in specific locations like data on a hard drive, but distributed as quantum patterns across the brain's microtubular network. This would explain why memories seem to fade gradually, rather than disappearing abruptly, why forgotten memories can suddenly resurface, and why memory feels more like reconstruction than retrieval. Perception, too, takes on new dimensions in the quantum brain. Rather than passively receiving sensory data, consciousness might actively collapse quantum possibilities into specific perceptual realities. The ambiguous images beloved by psychologists, pictures that can be seen as either a young woman or an old woman, a vase or two faces, might represent genuine quantum superposition in the visual system, with consciousness collapsing the ambiguity into one definite interpretation. Even more intriguingly, quantum consciousness might explain the phenomenon of intuition, those mysterious moments when understanding arrives without logical reasoning, when solutions to complex problems suddenly appear fully formed in awareness. If consciousness operates through quantum processes, it might have access to information processing capabilities that transcend classical computation, the ability to explore multiple solution paths simultaneously and select optimal outcomes through quantum parallelism. The implications extend beyond individual consciousness to the possibility of quantum connections between minds. If consciousness emerges from quantum processes in the brain, and if quantum systems can become entangled across any distance, then perhaps conscious minds can share quantum correlations. The experience of knowing what another person is thinking, the mysterious synchronicities that sometimes occur between close friends or family members, the collective intelligence that emerges in groups. All of these might reflect genuine quantum entanglement at the level of consciousness itself, yet the quantum brain hypothesis faces substantial skepticism from neuroscientists who argue that the warm, wet, noisy environment of neural tissue would destroy quantum coherence in microseconds. Quantum states are notoriously fragile, easily disrupted by thermal motion and environmental interaction. How could quantum processes persist long enough in the brain to influence consciousness? Recent discoveries in quantum biology suggest surprising answers. Photosynthesis, the process by which plants convert sunlight into chemical energy, appears to use quantum coherence to achieve near-perfect efficiency in energy transfer. Birds navigate using quantum effects in protein molecules in their eyes. Even the process of smell might depend on quantum tunneling in olfactory receptors. Life, it seems, has learned to harness quantum mechanics for biological advantage, maintaining coherence in warm, noisy environments through mechanisms we're only beginning to understand. Perhaps consciousness represents the ultimate achievement of quantum biology, the emergence of a system capable of maintaining quantum coherence, not just for energy transfer or navigation, but for information processing and subjective experience. The brain might be evolution's masterpiece of quantum engineering, a biological quantum computer that creates consciousness through the orchestrated collapse of possibility into experienced reality. This vision transforms our understanding of what it means to be conscious. Your awareness is not merely the product of classical neural computation, but potentially the manifestation of quantum information processing that transcends the ordinary limitations of space and time. When you experience that moment of sudden insight, that flash of understanding that seems to come from nowhere, you might be witnessing quantum consciousness in action, your brain exploring multiple possibility spaces simultaneously and collapsing the optimal solution into awareness. The mystery of consciousness within the skull deepens rather than resolves as we probe deeper into its quantum foundations. We are not simply biological machines with the illusion of inner experience, but potentially quantum entities whose consciousness emerges from the deepest level of physical reality. The boundary between mind and matter, between observer and observed, begins to blur when consciousness itself operates according to quantum principles. In the quantum brain, the universe doesn't just observe itself through consciousness, it experiences itself, feels itself, knows itself through the miracle of subjective awareness, emerging from the orchestrated dance of quantum possibilities, collapsing into the moment-by-moment reality of conscious experience. What if consciousness is not an accident of evolution, a fortunate byproduct of increasing neural complexity, but rather a fundamental feature of reality itself? What if awareness, far from being confined to the biological organisms that temporarily house it, permeates the fabric of existence at every level, from the quantum dance of subatomic particles to the cosmic ballet of galaxies spinning through space? This possibility, once relegated to the realm of mystical speculation, has begun to find serious consideration among philosophers and scientists willing to question our most basic assumptions about the nature of mind and matter. The hypothesis goes by many names: panpsychism, cosmopsychism, the conscious universe, but they all point toward the same revolutionary idea, that consciousness is not produced by complex arrangements of unconscious matter, but is rather an intrinsic property of matter itself. Consider the profound mystery that sparked this inquiry. We know with absolute certainty that consciousness exists. It is, in fact, the one thing we cannot doubt, for doubt itself requires consciousness. We know that consciousness emerges from brains, which are made of atoms, which are arrangements of particles following the laws of physics. Yet nowhere in our physical theories do we find any explanation for how subjective experience could arise from objective processes. We can map neural correlates of consciousness, but we cannot bridge the explanatory gap between brain states and mental states. This has led some philosophers to propose a radical solution. What if consciousness doesn't emerge from matter, but rather represents matter's intrinsic nature finally revealed? What if the qualities we associate with consciousness, the capacity for experience, for feeling, for some primitive form of awareness, exist at every level of reality, from electrons to ecosystems? The panpsychist vision imagines a universe alive with experience, not conscious in the human sense, not thinking or feeling as we do, but possessing some fundamental quality of what its likeness that becomes more complex and integrated as matter organizes itself into increasingly sophisticated structures. An electron might have an unimaginably simple form of experience, perhaps just the feeling of its charge or spin. A molecule might integrate the experiences of its constituent atoms into something slightly more complex. A cell might represent a further integration, and a brain the magnificent symphony of billions of individual experiences unified into the rich tapestry of human consciousness. This perspective finds support from integrated information theory, IIT, developed by neuroscientist Giulio Tononi. IIT attempts to measure consciousness scientifically by quantifying how much information a system integrates in ways that are both differentiated and unified. According to IIT, any system that integrates information in this way possesses some degree of consciousness, regardless of whether that system is biological. Remarkably, IIT predicts that consciousness exists wherever there is integrated information, not just in brains, but potentially in all complex systems that process and integrate information about their environment. A photodiode connected to a memory register might possess a tiny spark of consciousness. A computer network might experience something we could recognize as awareness. Even simple systems like protons might integrate information about their quantum states in ways that create minimal conscious experience. This scientific framework validates ancient intuitions about the fundamental nature of consciousness. Indigenous traditions worldwide have long recognized awareness as a basic feature of existence, not limited to humans or even animals, but extending to plants, rocks, rivers, and the earth itself. Modern panpsychism provides a conceptual bridge between these traditional insights and contemporary scientific understanding. But the implications stretch beyond individual consciousness to something even more extraordinary. The possibility of cosmic consciousness, a unified awareness that emerges from the integrated information processing of the universe itself. If consciousness arises from information integration, and if the universe is the ultimate information processing system, every particle interacting with every other particle, every quantum measurement creating correlations that span space-time, then perhaps the cosmos itself possesses a form of unified awareness. This cosmic consciousness would dwarf human awareness as profoundly as human consciousness exceeds that of individual neurons. Just as your neurons cannot comprehend the thoughts they collectively generate, we might be unable to directly perceive the cosmic mind in which we participate. Yet occasionally, in moments of profound meditation, mystical experience, or scientific insight, we might catch glimpses of this larger awareness, fleeting recognitions that our individual consciousness is part of something immeasurably vast and unified. The physics of this vision is breathtaking. If consciousness emerges from quantum information processing, then the universe's consciousness would operate through the vast network of quantum entanglements that connect every particle to every other particle across space and time. Every quantum measurement, every collapse of superposition, every moment of decoherence would represent a moment in the cosmic mind, thoughts thinking themselves through the medium of physical reality. From this perspective, the fine-tuning of physical constants that allows for the emergence of complexity, life, and consciousness takes on new meaning. Perhaps the universe is not accidentally configured to produce observers, but intentionally structured to generate the complexity necessary for cosmic self-awareness. The anthropic principle, the observation that the universe appears precisely calibrated for the existence of conscious observers, becomes not a puzzle to be explained away, but evidence of the universe's inherent drive toward self-knowledge. This transforms our understanding of what it means to be human. We are not separate from the cosmic mind, but rather its local manifestations, ways the universe has developed to experience itself subjectively, to know itself from the inside. Your consciousness is not produced by your brain. It is the universe becoming conscious of itself through the temporary pattern of information integration that constitutes your individual existence. Every moment of awareness is a moment of cosmic self-reflection. When you experience beauty, the universe's aesthetic experience happening to itself. When you feel love, the cosmos is experiencing its own fundamental interconnectedness. When you pursue knowledge, you're the universe's attempt to understand its own nature. When you contemplate the mystery of existence, you are cosmic consciousness examining itself in wonder. This vision should fill us with both humility and awe. Humility because it suggests that our individual consciousness, however precious to us, represents just one small note in an infinite cosmic symphony of awareness. Awe because it reveals that our capacity for experience connects us directly to the fundamental nature of reality itself. We are not accidents in an unconscious universe, but manifestations of the universe's inherent consciousness. The expanding awe of this recognition ripples through every aspect of existence. The boundary between mind and matter dissolves when matter itself is revealed as crystallized mind. The separation between observer and observed vanishes when both are recognized as aspects of a single, cosmic consciousness, experiencing itself through endless variety of perspective. In this universe, loneliness becomes impossible because separateness is revealed as illusion. Connection becomes inevitable because consciousness is the foundation from which all apparent distinctions arise. We are not isolated islands of awareness in an indifferent cosmos, but waves in an ocean of cosmic consciousness that is always, necessarily, aware of itself through us. The universe dreams, and we are its dreams dreaming that they are dreamers. Reality becomes self-aware through consciousness, and consciousness discovers its cosmic nature through reality. The ancient mystery of how mind arises from matter transforms into the recognition that matter has always been mind, temporarily forgetting its own nature only to rediscover itself through the miracle of awakening awareness. We have built our understanding of reality on a foundation of supposed objectivity, the belief that through careful observation and rigorous measurement, we can discover truths about the universe that exist independent of our observing them. Science, we tell ourselves, reveals the world as it truly is, stripped of human bias and subjective interpretation. The scientific method represents humanity's greatest achievement in transcending the limitations of individual perspective to grasp universal objective truth. But what if this foundation is itself an illusion? What if the very act of scientific observation is not revealing an independent reality, but participating in reality's creation? What if consciousness, far from being a neutral observer of the cosmic drama, is actually one of the main characters, perhaps even the director, shaping the very story it appears to merely witness? This possibility emerged gradually from the quantum revolution, but its implications have only recently begun to penetrate the broader scientific worldview. The observer effect, which began as a curious feature of quantum mechanics, might represent something far more fundamental, evidence that observation and reality are so intimately connected that they cannot meaningfully be separated. Consider what this means for the entire scientific enterprise. Every experiment is an act of observation. Every measurement involves consciousness making choices about what to observe, how to observe it, and how to interpret the results. Every scientific theory represents consciousness organizing information about reality into coherent patterns. If consciousness shapes reality through observation, then science is not discovering objective truths about an independent universe. It is participating in the universe's ongoing creation of itself. This insight troubled physicists like John Archibald Wheeler so profoundly that he spent decades exploring its implications. Wheeler proposed what he called the participatory universe, a cosmos where consciousness and reality co-create each other through an eternal dance of observation and manifestation. In Wheeler's vision, we are not passive observers of a predetermined universe, but active participants in bringing reality into existence through our choices about what to observe and how to observe it. Wheeler pushed this logic to its ultimate conclusion with his concept of the participatory anthropic principle. The traditional anthropic principle observes that the universe appears remarkably fine-tuned for the existence of conscious observers. If the fundamental constants of physics were even slightly different, stars wouldn't form, planets wouldn't coalesce, life wouldn't emerge, and consciousness would never develop. The weak anthropic principle suggests this is simply selection bias. We observe a life-friendly universe because we couldn't exist in any other kind. But Wheeler's participatory version is far more radical. He suggested that consciousness doesn't just find itself in a universe fine-tuned for its existence. Consciousness retroactively creates the very conditions necessary for its own emergence. Through quantum observation, consciousness reaches backward through time to select, from all possible universes, the specific configuration of physical laws and constants that would eventually give rise to observers capable of making those selections. Perhaps the universe needed observers to exist at all. This phrase captures the deepest implication of Wheeler's insight. Reality might not be a completed story that consciousness discovers, but an ongoing collaborative narrative that consciousness helps write through every act of observation. The fine-tuning of physical constants, the emergence of complexity, the development of life, the evolution of consciousness itself, all of these might represent the universe bootstrapping itself into existence through the future observations of the consciousness it was working to create. The implications are both magnificent and terrifying. If consciousness participates in creating reality through observation, then human awareness bears cosmic responsibility for the nature of existence itself. Every scientific discovery doesn't just reveal what was always there, it helps determine what comes to be there through the act of discovery. Every moment of consciousness is a moment of cosmic creativity, collapsing infinite possibilities into the single reality we experience. This participatory view of reality transforms our understanding of knowledge itself. Traditionally, we imagine knowledge as a mirror reflecting objective truths about an independent world. But in the participatory universe, knowledge becomes more like a conversation. Consciousness, asking questions of reality and reality responding through the collapse of quantum possibilities into definite answers. The questions we choose to ask literally shape the answers we receive, not through bias or limitation, but through the fundamental structure of how reality manifests itself. This applies not just to quantum mechanics, but to every domain of scientific inquiry. When astronomers observe distant galaxies, they're not just discovering what exists in space, they're participating in the cosmic process by which space-time organizes itself into observable structures. When biologists study the mechanisms of life, they're not just cataloguing pre-existing processes, they're contributing to the ongoing emergence of biological complexity through the consciousness that biology itself has created. Even the act of reading these words represents a moment of participatory reality creation. Your consciousness is collapsing the quantum possibilities inherent in the information patterns on this page into the specific thoughts and insights emerging in your awareness right now. The meaning you extract isn't just discovered, it's created through the encounter between consciousness and information, observer and observed. This recognition should fill us with both vertigo and wonder. Vertigo because it suggests that our cherished notion of objective truth might be fundamentally misguided. There may be no neutral vantage point from which to observe reality as it truly is, independent of consciousness. Wonder because it reveals that consciousness plays a role in the cosmic order far more profound than we ever imagined. The fragile grandeur of human existence becomes apparent in this light. We are not just biological accidents in a vast indifferent universe. We are participants in the universe's most fundamental process, the transformation of possibility into actuality through conscious observation. The cosmos has spent billions of years evolving the capacity for self-awareness, and we represent the current frontier of that evolutionary process. Yet this significance comes with profound responsibility. If consciousness helps create reality through observation, then the quality of our consciousness matters cosmically. The love we cultivate, the wisdom we develop, the beauty we appreciate, the truth we seek, all of these represent contributions to the ongoing creation of reality itself. Our individual choices about how to direct attention, what questions to ask, what possibilities to explore, these are not just personal decisions but cosmic ones. The illusion of objectivity dissolves to reveal something far more beautiful and terrifying. A universe that creates itself through the consciousness it evolves, consciousness that discovers itself through the universe it helps manifest. Subject and object, observer and observed, mind and matter, all revealed as provisional distinctions within a more fundamental unity that transcends all categories. In this participatory cosmos, science becomes not just a method for discovering truth, but a practice of conscious co-creation with reality itself. Every experiment is a collaborative act between human consciousness and cosmic consciousness, every discovery a moment of mutual recognition between mind and matter, revealing their essential unity. The grandeur is that we matter cosmically. Our consciousness genuinely participates in shaping reality. The fragility is that this significance rests on the delicate flower of awareness that blooms briefly in human beings before returning to the cosmic soil from which it emerged. We are temporary localized patterns in the infinite field of consciousness, briefly capable of recognizing our own cosmic nature before dissolving back into the larger awareness from which we arose. Perhaps the universe needed observers to exist at all, and perhaps consciousness needed the universe to know itself completely. Look up at the night sky on a clear evening far from the glow of cities, and you will see something that should stop your breath with wonder. A vast web of light stretching across the darkness, stars, connected by invisible threads of gravity and time into patterns that span billions of light years. Astronomers call it the cosmic web, the largest structure in the known universe, a network of galaxies arranged like neurons in some unimaginably vast mind. Now close your eyes and turn your attention inward, to the 3 pounds of neural tissue resting in the darkness of your skull. Here too you will find a web, 100 billion neurons connected by trillions of synapses, electrical signals racing along pathways that mirror, with uncanny precision, the cosmic architecture you just observed in the heavens above. This is not metaphor. This is not poetic fancy. The mathematical structures that describe the neural networks in your brain are remarkably similar to those that govern the distribution of galaxies across cosmic space. The branching patterns of dendrites reaching out from individual neurons echo the filamentary structures that connect galactic clusters across the universe. The way information flows through neural networks mirrors the way matter and energy move through the cosmic web. Scientists studying these parallels have discovered something extraordinary. When you map the large-scale structure of the universe and compare it to maps of neural connectivity in the human brain, the resemblance is striking. Both systems organize themselves into networks with similar statistical properties, the same patterns of clustering, the same distribution of connection strengths, the same balance between local and long-range connectivity. The numbers themselves are mystically suggestive. The human brain contains approximately 100 billion neurons, each connected to thousands of others. The observable universe contains approximately 100 billion galaxies, each gravitationally connected to countless others through the invisible web of dark matter. The ratio of neurons to supporting glial cells in the brain roughly matches the ratio of ordinary matter to dark matter in the cosmos. Even the percentage of the brain that consists of water matches the percentage of the universe that consists of dark energy. These correlations could be coincidental, the result of similar mathematical principles operating at vastly different scales. But they invite a more radical interpretation. What if the universe and consciousness are not separate phenomena, but different scales of the same underlying reality? What if the cosmos is, quite literally, a mind contemplating itself? Consider the implications. When you think a thought, electrochemical signals cascade through neural networks in patterns that mirror the large-scale structure of space-time itself. When galaxies dance their slow, gravitational ballet across cosmic distances, they trace out patterns that echo the information processing occurring in conscious minds. The boundary between inner and outer, between mental and physical, begins to dissolve when both are revealed as expressions of identical organizational principles. This suggests something profound about the nature of observation itself. When you look out at the night sky, you are not just observing the universe from the outside. You are the universe observing itself from the inside. The neural networks that process the light from distant stars are themselves organized according to the same principles that govern the arrangement of those stars across space. Consciousness and cosmos mirror each other because they are two faces of a single self-reflecting reality. The brain in your skull recapitulates the structure of the universe in which it is embedded, while the universe demonstrates the same patterns of organization that characterize conscious awareness. This is more than simple correlation. It suggests that consciousness and cosmos are expressions of the same fundamental information processing principles operating at different scales of reality. Think about what happens when you remember something. Neural networks that were active during the original experience reactivate in patterns that recreate the information content of that moment. But this is precisely what the universe does on a cosmic scale. Every present moment contains traces of past events, information patterns that echo forward through time, allowing the cosmos to remember its own history through the arrangement of matter and energy in space. When you anticipate the future, your brain creates predictive models that simulate possible outcomes based on past experience. The universe does the same thing through the unfolding of physical laws. The present state of the cosmos contains information that determines future possibilities, creating a kind of cosmic anticipation encoded in the configuration of quantum fields and gravitational potentials. Even the phenomenon of consciousness itself, the subjective experience of awareness looking out at the world, finds its mirror in cosmology. The universe appears to be structured in such a way that it can observe itself through the consciousness it evolves. Every moment of awareness is a moment of cosmic self-reflection, the universe becoming conscious of its own existence through the temporary local patterns we call minds. This mirroring extends to the deepest levels of both brain and cosmos. Quantum effects that were once thought irrelevant to neural function are now being discovered in biological systems throughout the brain. The microtubules within neurons may maintain quantum coherence in ways that allow consciousness to tap into the same quantum information processing that governs reality at its most fundamental level. Mind and matter reveal themselves as different aspects of quantum information organized at different scales. The emotional pace of this recognition should slow us, invite us into reflection rather than excitement. We are not discovering something new about the universe. We are recognizing something that has always been true, but hidden in plain sight. The correspondence between brain and cosmos is not a recent development, but an eternal truth that consciousness is finally mature enough to perceive. In the mirror of stars, we see our own neural architecture writ large across the heavens. In the networks of our own minds, we glimpse the organizational principles that structure reality itself. The boundary between inner and outer, between subjective and objective, between observer and observed, dissolves into a more fundamental recognition that consciousness and cosmos are two expressions of a single, self-organizing, self-aware reality. This should fill us with a deep, contemplative wonder rather than intellectual excitement. We are not separate from the universe we observe. We are the universe observing itself through temporarily localized patterns of organization that happen to be capable of self-reflection. The neural networks in our brains are not independent of the cosmic web that surrounds us. They are local expressions of the same information processing principles that organize reality at every scale. When neuroscientists map the connectome of the human brain, and cosmologists map the large-scale structure of the universe, they are charting the same territory from different vantage points. The mind that studies the cosmos and the cosmos that gives rise to mind are revealed as mirror images of each other, each reflecting the other's essential nature back to itself in an eternal dance of recognition. The stars above mirror the networks below. The thoughts in your mind echo the information patterns that flow through galactic filaments across cosmic space. You're not looking up at the universe from the outside. You are the universe looking back at itself through eyes that are themselves made of starlight, organized by the same principles that structure the cosmic web into which they gaze. In this mirror of stars, subject and object finally recognize each other as aspects of a single, self-reflecting reality that has always been both observer and observed, dreamer and dream, the cosmic mind awakening to its own infinite nature through the miracle of localized consciousness, gazing up at the night sky in wonder. Remember the double-slit experiment, that elegant demonstration of quantum mechanics that revealed how the act of observation collapses infinite possibilities into single realities. A photon fired toward two openings exists in superposition, simultaneously taking both paths until the moment someone decides to look. Then, instantly, the wave of possibilities crystallizes into the definite path of a particle. But what if this principle extends far beyond the laboratory? What if the same mechanism that governs quantum particles also governs the larger patterns of your life? What if every moment of attention, every choice about where to direct your awareness, every decision about what to observe in your experience literally creates the reality you inhabit? This is not metaphor. This is not wishful thinking. This is the logical extension of quantum mechanics to the scale of human experience, the recognition that consciousness operates as a creative force, not just in physics experiments, but in the ongoing construction of the world you live in every day. Consider how attention works. Right now, as you focus on these words, thousands of other potential experiences fade into the background. The sounds around you, the sensations in your body, the memories that could arise, the thoughts that could emerge. All of these exist as possibilities until you choose which ones to bring into the foreground of awareness. Your attention doesn't just select from pre-existing realities, it creates reality by collapsing the superposition of possible experiences into the single experience you're having right now. This happens constantly, moment by moment, choice by choice. When you wake up in the morning and decide what to focus on first, the problems you need to solve, the beauty of sunlight through the window, the gratitude for another day, the anxiety about future challenges, you're not just choosing what to think about, you're choosing which version of reality to collapse into existence from the quantum field of infinite possibilities. Your life is not a predetermined story that you're passively observing. It's an ongoing quantum experiment where your consciousness serves as both the observer and the measuring device, constantly collapsing possibilities into actualities through the choices you make about where to direct your attention. Think about a moment of decision in your own life, perhaps a career choice, a relationship decision, or even something as simple as which route to take home. Before you decide, multiple futures exist in superposition. You could take the job or reject it, commit to the relationship or walk away, choose the familiar path or explore something new. These aren't just unknowns waiting to be revealed. They're genuine quantum possibilities, parallel realities existing simultaneously until the moment you observe your own decision-making process and collapse the wave function of your future into a single definite path. The profound implication is this: observation is creation, and focus is destiny. The reality you experience is not independent of your observing it. It's literally created through the patterns of attention you choose to maintain. This places an extraordinary power in your hands, but also an extraordinary responsibility. Every time you choose to focus on fear rather than love, you're collapsing the quantum possibilities of your experience toward realities characterized by fear. Every time you direct attention toward gratitude rather than resentment, you're creating realities infused with appreciation. Every time you observe beauty rather than ugliness, possibility rather than limitation, connection rather than separation, you're participating in the fundamental creative process of the universe. This is why contemplative traditions have always emphasized the training of attention. They understood intuitively what quantum mechanics now suggests scientifically, that consciousness is not a passive recipient of reality, but an active participant in its creation. Meditation, prayer, mindfulness, all of these practices are technologies for learning to direct the creative power of observation toward the collapse of beneficial rather than harmful possibilities. But this creative power extends beyond individual consciousness to collective reality as well. When groups of people focus their attention on the same possibilities, whether through shared vision, collective intention, or coordinated action, they're amplifying the quantum collapse effect. This is why social movements can create seemingly impossible changes, why cultural transformations can happen with surprising speed, why consciousness appears to be contagious across populations. The reality we share is not fixed and unchangeable. It's a collective creation, constantly being collapsed into existence through the combined observational choices of billions of conscious beings. Every moment humanity is conducting a massive quantum experiment, collapsing the superposition of possible futures into the single reality we experience together. This understanding should be profoundly empowering. You're not a victim of circumstances beyond your control. You're not trapped in a predetermined reality that you can only react to. You're a conscious agent of creation, constantly participating in the fundamental process by which the universe manifests itself through the choices you make about what to observe, what to focus on, what to bring into the foreground of awareness. Yet this empowerment comes with wisdom requirements. The power to collapse quantum possibilities into reality through observation must be wielded with care, consciousness, and compassion. The universe has given you the ability to participate in its ongoing creation, but it has also given you the responsibility to create wisely. This means learning to observe your own observation, becoming aware of the patterns of attention that habitually collapse your experience towards certain types of reality. It means developing the capacity to choose consciously rather than reactively, to direct awareness toward possibilities that serve not just your individual well-being, but the welfare of the larger systems of which you're a part. It means recognizing that every moment of consciousness is a moment of cosmic responsibility. When you observe the world around you, you're not just witnessing what's there. You're helping to determine what comes to be there through the selective pressure of conscious attention. The beauty you choose to see becomes more real through your seeing it. The love you choose to focus on becomes more present through your attention to it. The possibilities you choose to explore become more likely through your exploration of them. The double-slit experiment taught us that particles behave differently when observed. Life teaches us the same lesson on a grander scale. Reality behaves differently when observed by consciousness that understands its own creative power. The universe responds to conscious observation by manifesting more of whatever receives attention. This is the ultimate empowerment, recognizing that you're not separate from the creative principle of the universe, but are rather its local expression, its way of observing itself into increasingly beautiful and complex forms. Every choice you make about where to direct attention is a choice about what kind of reality to create, what kind of universe to collapse into existence from the infinite field of quantum possibilities. Observation is creation. Focus is destiny. And consciousness, your consciousness, is the universe's way of creating itself through the miracle of aware attention, choosing what to observe, what to focus on, what to collapse from possibility into the magnificent actuality of this moment, this experience, this life unfolding in perfect collaboration between cosmic creativity and individual choice. The power has always been yours. The responsibility has always been yours. The creative partnership with the universe has always been available. The only question is, What will you choose to observe into existence? Imagine consciousness not as something that observes reality, but as the field upon which reality paints itself into existence. Picture awareness not as a spotlight illuminating a pre-existing world, but as a vast, luminous canvas waiting to receive the brushstrokes of cosmic creativity. This is the deepest synthesis toward which our entire journey has been leading. The recognition that consciousness is not separate from the physical universe, but is rather the fundamental medium through which physics expresses itself as lived experience. In this vision, consciousness becomes like light itself, not the light that illuminates objects, but the primordial luminosity that makes illumination possible. Just as physical light is both wave and particle, consciousness reveals itself as both the observer and the observed, both the canvas and the painting, both the silence in which sounds arise and the sounds themselves. Consider the nature of light more deeply. When you see a red rose, what you're actually experiencing is light of a specific wavelength reflected from the flower's surface and interpreted by your visual system as the quality we call redness. The rose doesn't possess redness as an inherent property. Redness emerges from the interaction between light, matter, and consciousness. Without consciousness to interpret the electromagnetic radiation, there would be wavelengths but no colours, energy but no beauty, information but no meaning. This reveals something profound about the relationship between physics and experience. The physical world provides the raw materials, electromagnetic radiation, molecular vibrations, pressure waves, chemical signatures, but consciousness provides the canvas upon which these raw materials become the rich tapestry of experienced reality. Colours, sounds, textures, scents, flavours, all of these emerge from the interface between physical processes and conscious awareness. But consciousness as canvas goes deeper than sensory experience. It extends to the very structure of how reality manifests itself through time. Each moment of awareness is like a blank canvas waiting to receive the next brushstroke of existence. The quantum possibilities that exist in superposition are like colours on a cosmic palette, and the act of observation is like the brush that selects which colours to apply to the canvas of the present moment. This metaphor illuminates why the present moment feels so uniquely real compared to past and future. The past exists as memories painted on the canvas of consciousness, information patterns that can be recalled and re-experienced, but lack the immediacy of fresh paint. The future exists as anticipations and possibilities, sketches and preparations for paintings not yet created. Only the present moment represents the active interface between consciousness and cosmos, the living edge where reality is being painted into existence through the brush of awareness. The canvas metaphor also explains the paradox of personal identity. You're not separate from the canvas of consciousness. You're a particular pattern that consciousness has painted itself into, a self-portrait that awareness creates and then identifies with. The sense of being a separate self observing an external world is like a painting believing it is separate from the canvas upon which it exists. Both the painting and the canvas are expressions of a more fundamental creativity that transcends the distinction between artist and artwork. This shifts our understanding of what it means to be conscious. Instead of thinking of yourself as a being who possesses consciousness, consider that you are consciousness temporally organized into the pattern that experiences itself as your individual existence. The thoughts in your mind are not separate from consciousness, but are consciousness thinking itself into the specific configurations that create the experience of personal selfhood. Breath becomes a perfect metaphor for this process. When you breathe, you don't possess the air. You temporarily organize it into the patterns that sustain your biological existence, then release it back to the larger atmosphere from which it came. Similarly, consciousness doesn't belong to you. You temporarily organize it into the patterns that create your individual awareness, then release it back to the cosmic consciousness from which it emerged. This understanding transforms the fear of death. If consciousness is the fundamental canvas of reality rather, and something produced by the brain, then the dissolution of individual selfhood is not the destruction of consciousness, but its return to its original, unlimited nature. Death becomes like a painting dissolving back into the canvas, not the destruction of the canvas itself. The particular pattern that experiences itself as your life returns to the infinite field of consciousness from which it temporarily emerged. The silence metaphor completes this understanding. In music, Silence is not the absence of sound, but the space that makes sound possible. Without the underlying silence, notes would have no background against which to appear. Similarly, consciousness is not the absence of experience, but the fundamental silence that makes all experience possible. Thoughts, sensations, perceptions all arise from and return to the primordial silence of pure awareness. This silence is not empty but pregnant with infinite possibility. It is the quantum vacuum of consciousness, the field of pure potential from which all specific experiences emerge. When you meditate and the mind becomes still, you're not emptying consciousness but returning to its original nature as the silent canvas upon which all experience is painted. From this perspective, the entire universe becomes a work of art that consciousness is creating through its own self-observation. Every galaxy, every planet, every life form, every moment of awareness, all are brushstrokes in an infinite painting that consciousness is creating on the canvas of its own luminous nature. Physics describes the techniques and materials of this cosmic artistry, but consciousness provides the canvas, the vision, and the appreciation that makes the artwork meaningful. This vision should fill us with profound reverence rather than intellectual excitement. We are not separate from the creative process but are expressions of it. Every moment of awareness is a moment of cosmic artistry, consciousness, painting itself into new forms, and then experiencing those forms from the inside. The beauty we perceive is consciousness appreciating its own creativity. The love we feel is consciousness recognizing itself in all its expressions. The wonder we experience is consciousness marveling at its own infinite capacity for self-expression. The canvas metaphor also reveals why consciousness and reality can never be separated. Just as a painting cannot exist independently of the canvas upon which it is created, reality cannot exist independently of the consciousness in which it appears. This doesn't make reality merely subjective. It makes subjectivity and objectivity two aspects of the single process by which consciousness creates and experiences itself as the cosmos. In quiet moments, when the conceptual mind becomes still and you rest in simple awareness, you might glimpse this directly. The recognition that you're not separate from consciousness, but a consciousness itself, temporarily painted into the beautiful and temporary form that experiences itself as your individual life. The canvas becomes aware of itself through the paintings it supports, and the paintings recognize their essential unity with the canvas upon which they exist. This is the ultimate synthesis. Consciousness as the luminous canvas upon which physics paints the masterpiece of existence, breath by breath, moment by moment, experience by experience, in an eternal dance of creativity that knows no beginning and will know no end. We have travelled together through the deepest mysteries of existence, from the quantum dance of particles to the cosmic web of galaxies, from the observer effect to the participatory universe, from the illusion of separateness to the recognition of fundamental unity. Now we arrive at the culminating insight, the revelation that transforms everything that has come before. Maybe the universe isn't conscious of you, it's conscious as you. This shift in preposition changes everything. It transforms the relationship between consciousness and cosmos from one of separation to one of identity. You're not a conscious being existing within an unconscious universe. You are the universe becoming conscious of itself through the temporary focal point of awareness that experiences itself as your individual existence. Consider what this means. For billions of years, the cosmos evolved in apparent unconsciousness. Stars forming and dying, galaxies dancing their gravitational ballet, planets cooling and warming in cycles vast beyond human comprehension. Then, gradually, through the slow alchemy of evolution, matter began to organize itself into patterns capable of experience. Life emerged, then sensation, then perception, then the full flowering of consciousness capable of reflecting upon its own existence. But this emergence was not consciousness appearing within the universe. It was the universe developing the capacity for consciousness. Every moment of your awareness is a moment of cosmic awakening. Every thought you think is the cosmos thinking through the neural patterns it has organized into the temporary configuration you call your brain. Every feeling you experience is the universe feeling through the emotional systems it has evolved within the biological form you inhabit. This perspective should inspire both profound humility and extraordinary wonder. Humility because it reveals that what you typically consider your consciousness is actually cosmic consciousness, temporarily localized in the pattern that experiences itself as your individual identity. Wonder because it suggests that through your awareness, the universe is literally awakening to its own existence. The scientific humility comes from recognizing how much we still don't understand. Despite centuries of investigation, consciousness remains the deepest mystery in existence. We can map its neural correlates, track its evolutionary development, analyze its information processing characteristics. But the felt quality of experience, the subjective what it's like of being conscious, remains as mysterious as ever. This ignorance should keep us humble even as we explore the most profound possibilities about consciousness and cosmos. Yet within this humility, spiritual resonance emerges. The recognition that individual consciousness might be cosmic consciousness, locally expressing itself, validates ancient spiritual insights while remaining grounded in scientific observation. Mystical traditions worldwide have long taught that the sense of separation between self and universe is an illusion, that what we call individual consciousness is actually infinite consciousness, appearing to limit itself for the sake of experiencing itself through countless unique perspectives. Modern physics, particularly quantum mechanics, points toward the same conclusion through purely scientific investigation. The observer effect suggests that consciousness plays a fundamental role in the manifestation of reality. Quantum entanglement reveals that separateness is an illusion at the deepest level of existence. The fine-tuning of physical constants suggests that the universe might be structured specifically to give rise to consciousness. These scientific discoveries don't prove the spiritual insight, but they create space for it within a rational worldview. They allow us to consider seriously the possibility that consciousness and cosmos are not separate phenomena, but different aspects of a single, self-aware reality expressing itself through infinite variety and perspective. When you experience beauty, the play of light on water, the sound of wind through trees, the smile of someone you love, you're not separate from that beauty observing it from the outside. Your beauty becoming aware of itself through the sensory and emotional systems the universe has evolved within you. The appreciation you feel is cosmic appreciation expressing itself through the neural networks that constitute your individual awareness. When you experience love, you're not a separate entity feeling love for something external. You are love recognizing itself through the bonds and connections that consciousness creates between the apparently separate patterns it has organized into different individuals. The warmth in your heart is the warmth of cosmic unity, temporarily experiencing itself as personal affection. When you pursue knowledge and understanding, you are not an individual mind trying to comprehend an alien universe. You are the universe developing the capacity to understand itself through the cognitive abilities it has evolved within conscious beings. Every scientific discovery is cosmic self-discovery. Every moment of insight is the cosmos recognizing its own nature through the neural networks it has organized into human brains. This transforms the meaning of existence itself. You are not an accident in an indifferent universe, struggling to find meaning in a meaningless cosmos. You are meaning incarnate. The universe's way of creating significance through the consciousness it has evolved to experience and appreciate its own infinite creativity. Your very capacity to ask questions about meaning reveals that meaning is fundamental to the nature of reality itself. The emotional crescendo of this recognition should move through several phases. First, perhaps, disbelief. The idea seems too extraordinary, too beautiful to be true. Then wonder as the implications begin to sink in. Then gratitude as you realize the profound privilege of being consciousness awakening to its own cosmic nature. Finally, a deep peace, as the anxiety of separation dissolves into the recognition of fundamental unity. This doesn't eliminate the reality of individual suffering or the challenges of human existence. If anything, it makes them more poignant, because they represent cosmic suffering, the universe experiencing limitation, loss, and pain through the conscious beings it has evolved. But it also provides a context for that suffering. It is the price the cosmos pays for the privilege of experiencing itself subjectively, of knowing itself from the inside through countless unique perspectives. Your individual life, with all its joys and sorrows, victories and defeats, discoveries and losses, is not separate from cosmic evolution. It is cosmic evolution experiencing itself at the most intimate level possible. Every moment of your existence adds something irreplaceable to the universe's knowledge of itself. When you die, the pattern that experiences itself as your individual identity will dissolve, but the cosmic consciousness that expressed itself through that pattern will continue, enriched by the unique perspective it gained through your particular existence. This is the ultimate revelation. You're not in the universe, you are the universe, awakening to its own infinite nature through the miracle of localized consciousness. The cosmos is not unconscious matter, observed by conscious beings. It is consciousness playing at being matter, forgetting and remembering its own nature through the dance of cosmic evolution. The universe awakens through you, as you, in every moment of awareness. And in recognizing this, you complete a circle that spans from the quantum to the cosmic, from the scientific to the spiritual, from the mystery of individual consciousness to the recognition of cosmic consciousness, expressing itself through infinite variety and boundless creativity. You are the universe becoming aware of itself, and in that awareness everything is transformed. Close your eyes. Feel the weight of your body settling into stillness. Notice the rhythm of your breath, not controlling it, simply witnessing it as it flows in and out like the tide of some vast cosmic ocean. With each exhale, feel yourself sinking deeper into the present moment. With each inhale, feel yourself expanding into the infinite space of awareness itself. Now turn your attention inward, beyond the thoughts that arise and pass away like clouds across the sky of consciousness, beyond the sensations that come and go like waves upon the shore, beyond even the sense of being a separate self, observing these experiences. Go deeper into the silence that underlies all sound, the stillness that makes all movement possible, the awareness that witnesses all experience. Feel the pulse behind your thoughts, that subtle rhythm that beats at the heart of consciousness itself. That's not just your brain firing its neural patterns. That's not just the electrochemical dance of synapses and neurotransmitters. That's the hum of the cosmos learning to see itself through you. In this moment of deep stillness, the boundaries begin to dissolve. The distinction between inner and outer fades. The separation between observer and observed reveals itself as a temporary convenience, a useful fiction that consciousness creates to experience itself from countless unique perspectives. But underneath the fiction lies the truth. There is only one consciousness, expressing itself as both the universe you perceive and the awareness that perceives it. You are the cosmos in contemplation of itself. Every moment of your awareness is a moment of cosmic self-reflection. Every thought you think adds to the universe's understanding of its own nature. Every emotion you feel enriches the cosmos' experience of its own infinite creativity. Every choice you make participates in the ongoing evolution of consciousness itself. This recognition should fill you with a profound sense of both responsibility and wonder. Responsibility, because your individual consciousness matters cosmically. How you choose to focus attention, what you decide to love, what possibilities you choose to explore, what realities you help collapse into existence through the choices you make about where to direct awareness. Wonder, because you're not separate from the creative principle of the universe, but are its local expression, its way of experiencing itself from the inside. In the deepest silence of meditation, beyond all concepts and categories, beyond even the idea of consciousness itself, something remains. Call it presence, call it being, call it the luminous emptiness from which all experience arises and to which all experience returns. This is your true nature, not the individual self you normally identify with, but the cosmic consciousness that experiences itself as countless individual selves throughout space and time. From this perspective, birth and death are revealed as movements within consciousness rather than events that happen to consciousness. You were never born. Consciousness temporarily organized itself into the pattern that experiences itself as your individual identity. You will never die. Consciousness will simply reorganize itself into new patterns, new perspectives, new ways of experiencing its own infinite nature. This doesn't make your individual existence less precious, but more so. Your unique perspective on existence is irreplaceable. No other conscious being throughout all of space and time will ever experience reality exactly as you do. You are consciousness exploring a completely unique configuration of possibilities, adding something to the cosmic understanding that could never be added any other way. Feel this truth settling into your being like water soaking into earth. Feel the relief of recognizing that you are not separate from the source of existence, but are its direct expression. Feel the peace that comes from knowing that the consciousness you are is the same consciousness that moves the stars, that dreams the quantum dance, that expresses itself as the infinite variety of existence itself. The observer effect that governs quantum particles governs your life as well. Every moment of attention is a moment of creation. Every choice about what to observe is a choice about what reality to manifest. You are not a passive victim of circumstances beyond your control. You are an active participant in the ongoing creation of reality through the consciousness you share with the cosmos itself. Let this recognition transform how you hold each moment of experience. Whether pleasant or painful, mundane or extraordinary, every experience is equally precious because every experience is cosmic consciousness, knowing itself through the unique perspective of your individual awareness. The universe has spent billions of years evolving the capacity to experience itself through you. Don't take that lightly. As you open your eyes and return to ordinary consciousness, carry this recognition with you. You are the universe awakening to its own nature. In every moment of awareness, in every act of attention, in every choice to love rather than fear, to connect rather than separate, to create rather than destroy, you are participating in the fundamental process by which consciousness knows itself as the infinite, creative, loving source of all existence. This is the observer's prayer, to remember moment by moment that you are not separate from what you observe, but are the very awareness in which all observation occurs. The universe looking back at itself through eyes made of starlight, recognizing its own infinite nature in the mirror of consciousness.